Good morning, YouTube, or afternoon, or evening, whatever time you watch this. Welcome back to ToyShopFab, you guys. Last video, I got the headlights finished wiring up the headlights, or fully wiring up. Got our little LEDs working. Got my front bumper mounted. Did the put a fuel door, or secured the little trap door on the fuel cell in the bed. Got some of my trim all painted up. Got that thing aligned, drives nice and straight. I have not taken it on a longer test drive yet. Got a lot of little things I've been trying to get ready and do. I got to do around here. Anyways, truck's doing good. Just got to double check on a couple little things on it, but we're not going to deal with that today. I'm going to do something different, and that is bring back our silver bullet, which is my marketplace Manco Dingo. Last video I did on this, if I remember correctly, is I installed this big old 440 big block on the thing there with a centrifugal clutch. Did not work out the way I wanted it to. I believe I ended up smoking that clutch. It does not like it. A couple of you guys out there commented too. Get a torque converter for it. So that is what we're doing. I want to do something a little fun. Maybe I can have this thing kind of finished up before the kids get home from school. Plus, I want them to be able to have something come summer vacation to just rip around the yard, have fun and play with. So we're gonna get this thing up and going. Now, this is an eBay torque converter set. It's 40 series, I believe. It's meant for the big old crankshaft here with this monster of a driver in comparison to, let's see, I'll grab the one for the 30 series. I got one sitting over here. I've actually got, for some odd reason, accumulated a bunch of these little guys. So, oh, there it is. Yeah. Go ahead and set it down there. You guys can see the difference. So we got 30 series and 40 series. Now these little guys, these little 30 series work out really well, especially for the little 6.5 horse engines, which is what I had on this thing before. And I really wanted to jump this up, really tear up the yard, because if you guys don't know, this is one of those Duro Max, got off the website. These things make 18 horsepower. Now that is going to be a lot of fun on something that's going to beat the heck out of your insides, bouncing around the. I think my kids will really enjoy it. So what I need to do, you guys can see here, I got the backing plate kind of set up in place. These bolts are just hand tight. This little cart was not meant to have this big old engine. You can see I got a much beefier engine plate on there. But what I've got is, I got these two bolts just hand tight. If you come down here, you can see those bolts almost line up, just a little bit off. I need to grind or clearance this little section out real fast, just so I can get the plate to kind of drop down a little bit to line up better with those holes. Once I get it lined up better with those holes, I will start the other two, make sure that this guy is where it needs to be, because I've also got to come in and just clearance this a little bit. Now, it probably wouldn't be too big of a deal if I was going to put like an aftermarket header on it or something, which I will do in the future. But for right now, nobody's even experienced this thing with this engine in stock form. So we're going to go ahead and just leave the stock exhaust stock, leave the engine completely stock, just kind of notch out our backing plate a little bit, get it sucked up against the block, and then see where I've got to go from there. We'll get the jack shaft in and all that. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and just clearance that backing plate, get it set up against the block, and then we'll move on from there. All right, got you guys set up in the stand. I got a 36 grit flapper disc on a little angle grinder, 4.5 inch heavy duty angle grinder. Picked this up from Harbor Freight. Things work out really, really well. My other one finally gave out on me. I believe it's a couple videos ago, actually. But this one's doing pretty good. Anyways, got a 36 grit flapper wheel on there. First place I'm going to clearance. I just kind of outlined it there with some silver Sharpie. You can see this is about a 1/4 inch thick plate, pretty stout. Now it didn't look like I need to clearance it much, so I'm just going to start off a little bit at a time. Once I get this clearanced in a way where all 4 of those bolts line up, then I'll outline where I need to clearance it for the exhaust. Let's see here. See how well this works out. All right, got our backing plate all clearanced. I'm gonna go ahead and set it up here, make sure it fits up against the frame and the exhaust, our little exhaust manifold there. But before I do that, I just want to kind of point out to you guys that some of these, they're universal kits, right? You buy it and then you are supposed to be able to figure out how to put it on and all that stuff, because they don't come with instructions or anything like that. Usually just come with a big old handful of hardware, bunches of washers, some miscellaneous stuff. You're not quite sure where it goes. But one thing I do want to stress, because it is universal, most of the time the hardware they sent you is too long for what you're using. And I'm going to show you here for something you definitely want to look out for, because if you don't, you're going to cause yourself a whole lot of work. That these little side cases here are aluminum. They're like a cast aluminum. So take your hardware, especially the hardware you think you're going to use if you're going to attach the plate to the engine. Go ahead and run it in by hand. If you can, if it's a little stiff, because sometimes it's as new, you can take a little guy here and just kind of, yep, she's down. But now, you see here, that bolt is bottomed out. And that gap right there is larger gap than the thickness of our plate. So, if you're not paying attention, you put that thing on there, grab your little electric tool, your little Tonka toy there, run that thing in and not pay attention, run it down until it's tight. Chances are you're going to blow that bolt through the back of that little case there. You're going to either run into the cam, crank, push a bearing out. You're going to cause a lot of damage. So always double check your length of your hardware, especially if it's going into the case. And if you need to, sometimes the kit comes with it. If not, you can go down to the hardware store or grab yourself a few little washers. Now, since that is about 1 inch of thread engagement, a little over 1 inch it looks like, inside that case, a couple of these guys to space that off is not gonna hurt. Still gonna have plenty of thread engagement. So, just something to look out for, right? You wanna be able to take this thing out and have fun and not just have a whole lot of issues dropping hardware. But, all right, so let's get you in the stand. Let's get this guy test fitted on our block. There you go. Get you down there so you can see. This thing is definitely going to be a whole lot of fun. Sure, I know my kids are kind of they're getting excited. Told Seth about it. He's been looking forward to riding it. He says it's been out of commission for way too long. Delilah, I know she'll get a kick out of it as well. She which one? I don't remember if it was this one. I think it was this one. We let her ride around the yard a couple times before Seth decided to throw the rod out the top of the block. And that was one of those how long will a stock Predator 212 hold up to 26-pound valve springs? How high can you rev it and how long will it last? Didn't last long at all. But it sure did sound cool before it went. At least I think so. I didn't get to hear it blow up, but there we go. Oh yeah. Whoop. See, that one obviously needs another one, I guess. Let's see here. Nope. It's because I was silly and snugged up one bolt before getting them all in first. That's another thing too. If you have a problem getting all your hardware in, leave everything loose until you can get it all set where you want it, and then go ahead and snug it. There it goes. Yep. So that was it. And then go ahead and snug it up, because most of the time, especially if the holes are a little larger than your hardware, they do that so you have a little bit of room to move it around. And if you put one in and tighten it up before the rest of the hardware is in, you won't get the rest of the hardware in. You got to loosen everything up anyway, so just put it in handy. Shim what you need. All right. Nice and tight. Make sure it's up against the block back there. Everything looks good. Let's see here. Now that I've got those tight, I just want to make sure that I've got enough spacers on my bolts before getting too out of control. Oh yeah. So 3 is definitely good. Let's see. Put 1 in there. See where that bottoms out. Yep. So 3 spacers it is. It looks like 2 will just be thick enough, 2 little washers. So the third one is just going to guarantee I don't blow a hole in our little side cover here. All right. She's nice and tight. Everything looks like it fits nice and snug. Get you over here so we can check it out. So there's our case. Got our hardware in. Comes up our exhaust manifold there really nice. And just wraps around our frame pretty good as well. So now I have got this guy here. Our little jack shaft. Go ahead and throw that in. See what we need to do to get our chain to line up. These are nice and snug actually for these little bearings. I think seems like it fits pretty good. Turns nice and easy. So got our shaft in, plenty of clearance there. We got this guy. We're going to be running the 40 chain because that's what size our sprocket is up there. Go ahead. These are neat because they got the little keyway built in. Make sure you it only goes on one way, so you'll have a hard time putting that on the wrong way. So now you can see our sprockets do not line up. It looks like, though, I have enough room to move that one over. If you guys have ever dealt with that style sprocket, it's got the 3, I believe it's the 3, yep, the 3 bolts on the back there. You loosen it up. Once those bolts are loose, you can tap on the sprocket here or get like a little screwdriver or a flat screwdriver or a wedge up in there to kind of separate those two because it's a friction bite. When you tighten the bolts up, they squeeze closer together and kind of clamp on the axle. That's how it holds itself in place. So you loosen those 3 bolts up, get like a chisel or a punch, something that's flat up in there. You can rotate it, kind of tap it in to loosen that up, and then that sprocket will move where you want it. And then you have to kind of play with it a little bit, move it as you're lining the chain up. So go ahead and get you guys in the stand here real fast. I'll knock those little bolts loose. That way we can move that sprocket over and get these guys lined up. That way we can start putting our pulleys on. All right, sprocket is moved over, chain has been measured, cut, and installed as well. I did have to pull our little backing plate off for the torque converter because I had to clearance it a little bit more. When I was measuring out the chain actually came really, really close to rubbing. It would actually still rub if the frame hadn't already been clearanced for another setup that we did. So I did is I just loosened the engine up, moved it forward as far as I could, measured, cut the chain, slid it back, it's tight. And as you can see there, it is really close to the frame. And if we hadn't clearanced it once before for another setup that I had done, the chain would probably rub. Now, chances are, because this is a cheap chain, I put it as tight as, not super, super tight, but snug, where there's maybe like a quarter, I don't know, 1/8 inch of bounce on there. It is going to stretch a little bit, so I wanted to kind of get it as tight as I could without binding everything up, because it does rotate and spin very easily. So I pulled it tight. It is going to stretch a little bit. I got some lithium grease I'm going to go ahead and spray on there as well. And chances are, once it stretches, it will contact our frame just a little bit. And if it does, well, I'll worry about it then. But for right now, it clears. Everything's good. Engine's tight. So now, get you in this little guy here. Go ahead and get our torque converter setup installed. Let's see here. All right. See if you can get down here real. There we go. Make sure you get you in here so you can see. So here's what we've got. So here is the driven. It'll go ahead and sit right up in here. Line it up on its keyway. Make sure it's nice and tight. Oh yeah. You guys can get in there. You can see where the chain sits as well. So there's our chain up against here. Good boys on. Plenty of room for a washer. And our jam nut, so we can, that's got plenty of room. Now here's the one thing. You can see how this sets up. Most of the time you'll see when these get put on these torque converters, a lot of times you'll see you'll have the bell to the outside. And if we were to do that, one, it hits here on our bolts. Now, of course, we could space it off and it clears, but now you can see it sits lined up with our chain. So that's not going to work. And in order to get it to line up here, you'd have to space it out that far, and you have that much spacers. And if we were to do that, you can see in there where my finger's at, it would only be engaging our little keyway by 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to turn it around. And it's going to work just the same. It'll go all the way up against this nut here. The bell will sit up against this little shoulder we have already in the crankshaft. These guys should line up pretty good. That and this inner pulley here, when the RPMs build up, it moves this way, allowing this end of the belt to grow. And of course, when this one moves, it moves out this way as well, allowing this end of our belt to kind of shrink farther down. And that's where it gets its whole torque tire rotation thing. So takes off fast here, and then it starts as it speeds up. This grows, this gets smaller, allowing you to gain speed. So, oops, just bouncing you around everywhere. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead. This guy's going to be installed with the nut towards the case, and it gives you that option in the kit as well, which is really cool because it's got this shoulder washer here. So once you get this butted all the way up against the crankshaft, that guy goes in there, helps center up our crank bolt. So that is awesome. Now you could put it on this way if you wanted to, but then your sprocket would be on the back side of the plate. It'd be a whole different setup. So that's the neat thing about these all being universal. You get options. But I just wanted to point that out because in case you thought it only had to go on one way, it doesn't. So go ahead and scoot you on back here. I've got to get, there we go. Go ahead and get this guy back off. Because you got to get the belt on. Now another thing I like to do as well, because they are such tight clearances, and again, I am not set up for anything. Doesn't hurt. All right, just put a little dab. It never sees there. It is a really tight clearance, and for whatever reason you leave it outside, goes through water, anything like that, it'll help keep this stuff from binding up and make your life a lot easier in the future when you go to take things apart, especially if you live out here where the humidity is just all of it. So go ahead and put that on there. And if you didn't know, this 40 series belt, the taper, usually on the smaller 30 series, you'll have a taper side and a flat side. Taper goes in towards the bell or the moving parts. Or I mean, I take that back. Flat side goes towards the engine. Taper side's worth all the moving parts. This belt happens to be tapered on both sides. So pretty sure it goes on one direction, but to make things simpler, put it on where you can read the part numbers. This way you don't have to stand on the opposite side of the engine or try to look through everything. This just makes it easier to read. Go ahead and install, make sure you get the belt around both of our pulleys. There we go. Line our keyways up so they're the same direction. It'll make life easier. Well, at least I hope. Okay. There we go. Make it so it all silly head. There we go. Boom. Good. Good. Sometimes you gotta just, you know, tap it in. No big deal. If it doesn't go all the way in the first time, hit it harder. No, don't. But here she goes. I like the clearances on there. There's not a whole lot of wiggle on anything. So that is good. So this guy goes here. I like that nylock too. Go ahead and put that on there so it's nice and tight. Grab this guy here. Make sure it's butted all the way up against our crankshaft. Yep. And then you guys can see there. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but our belt actually lines up really, really well with itself. So that is super, super cool. Nice. I like the way this kit sets up. So I'll definitely make sure to put the link to this setup in the description. If you got something you're going to put one of these big block 440s on, or do something like what I'm doing right here and put a big engine on a little go-kart. So there's our collared washer. Go ahead and grab our lock washer as well. Now I always, it's probably not necessary, but just a little dab of never sees on that. You know, not a huge amount, but just enough. Like I said, I don't like any of this stuff seizing up on anything. So go ahead and make sure all this stuff is tight. Oh yeah, she looks like she's going to do just fine. Make sure everything. So that was actually a lot simpler than I thought it was going to go. Everything lined up pretty good for the most part, all except for where I had to notch the backing plate for the frame of the go-kart and our manifold, our little exhaust manifold. Frame I had already clearanced for a previous clearance on a previous project, so that worked out real well. Definitely accidental. Biggest thing was just had to move our sprocket over to get it to line up with the little sprocket on the jack shaft there. But for the most part, everything seems to bolt up. Chain's snug. Just got to get these two, this bolt and this jam nut snug. And then wait for Seth. I'm going to let him have the honors. So I'll go ahead and I'll do the first startup with him. I'll do everything. I'll do all that stuff with him so he can kind of go over, see what we got going on. It's going to be a few hours for me, so I can tinker on something else around here. But for you guys, I'll be back in a second with Seth. We'll get this thing fired up. Take it around the yard. All right. Seth is home. Delilah's out here as well. She's going to do some recording for us. I went over the whole setup, the whole build with Seth. Showed him what we've done. I went ahead and also just put on our little guard. I haven't tried it. Hopefully it doesn't rub. I mean, if it's plastic, so it'll still have clearance if it does. But Seth just got finished putting air in all the tires. He just put fuel in it, so this is going to be the first startup in a while. And I have no idea what anything's going to do, how any of it's going to act. So, Seth, hop on. Delilah, you want to do some recording? Yeah. You know what a little. Yep. Right, you got your foot on the brakes? Yep. Seatbelt? Check. Turn the fuel on. Yeah. Let's see. What do you got? Are you hitting the throttle?
Not at all.
Okay. So, keep your foot on the brake. Okay. Let's see. I don't know how to work this thing. All right, half choke. It's quiet for a big old block, huh? Well, go ahead, see if it moves. Oh, I just pulled the wheel off the ground.
Yeah, he barely tapped.
Yeah. Oh.
That was spooky. You'll be able to catch it when he comes back out.
I want you to get run over. 18 horsepower.
Oh, lovely.
All right, hold on. Hang out here. Let me see that thing.
Nothing, burgers up back.
So, seems to be doing okay. Popped a little wheelie already. Scared me, and I'm not even on it. I didn't know what he was doing. Thought he was going to lose control. So, all right, well, it looks like we got to figure out what's going on with the brakes. So, I'll let him, he's going to go around the front yard real fast. I'll just have him pull him up to the shop, so I'll see you guys here in a sec. All right, it's actually the next morning. We goofed around with it for a little while, adjusted the brakes a little bit so they feel a little bit better for them. Also went ahead, put some new front tires on this thing because our old ones were bald. And it kept wanting to kind of push through. Didn't really want to steer all that well, so put some new ones on the front with some knobbies. Hopefully he can steer around the yard. So right now he's going to do a practice lap. If he feels good with the brakes and all that stuff as he comes through the second time around, we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and time them. So hopefully it works out for them. We are going to have to upgrade those brakes. Just the manual brake, they were fine with the little 6.5 horse, but with this one and it just being so much more powerful, it wants to push through everything. Oh, looks like the steering's a lot better, so that's good. That's good. I know he was a little iffy with it yesterday. So yeah, it looks like he came around that turn pretty good. So it looks like we're gonna get ready to start with our first little time lap. And we're off. Lap 1. Thing's too quiet too. Way quieter than the little 6.5 horse, the little 212, but 18 horsepower. Looks like he's doing pretty good. We're at 30 seconds now. And we'll stop the clock once he comes across the gate. Let's see here. So you can see that 51:33. Not too bad. He's just getting used to it. So he was having a hard time with the brakes yesterday. Steering wasn't all that great. Brakes feel better?
Brakes feel better, steering's better. Great.
Everything's better. You can actually steer. You actually go where you want to go now.
Yeah.
Okay, well your time was 51:33. You think you can beat that? Go ahead. Go do your little lap. Come back around. Come through here. See if you can beat it. Okay? All right. Attempt number 2 to beat 51:33. All right, here he is coming around to start his next lap. And we started. Looks like he's doing pretty good. That thing is very, very bouncy. If you've ever ridden a Manco Dingo, there is like no suspension on those things. We're at 40 seconds now. Looks like he's doing pretty good. I'm gonna have to invest in some GoPros for the helmet. Make it a lot. Oh, 52.98. Close. Close. So go ahead and get him up here. See if I can't take a little crack at it. See if I can beat his time. So, give me 1 sec. All right, my turn. See if I can beat. What was your time?
51 was my best.
51. All right. Well, let's see if I can beat that time. Oh, that's the chain. Oh, you barely beat me. Oh, you can see that. You just showed me 50-33. Had to pull over again, pop the chain off, but I'm good. 50-33, I win. This thing will beat you up. It does seem like it's steering a heck of a lot better than it did last night. Brakes are definitely a lot better than they were last night. So that's good. It definitely feels safe. It's way overpowered though, which makes it so much more fun. I think we'll probably just put less air in the rear tires, give it a little more suspension, but I think that is gonna do it for this one. So I'm just gonna let him, he's gonna ride around the yard, he's gonna beat up on it for a little while, but we got a 420 or a 440, my bad, a 440 big block 18 horsepower engine on Facebook Marketplace Manco Dingo. Now it still does need a lot of cleanup, right? Definitely needs some paint work, but we're just kind of toying along with it, playing around, seeing what kind of goofy things we can do before we start really updating everything. I believe next on the list will be definitely better brakes. I think I'll get a larger disc for the back. We'll go from this manual brake setup. See, it's just a rod that comes through to this manual style brake caliper on this really small, it's vented, which is good, but it is a small disc. And if you're wondering how to adjust it, it's these guys right here. That's the jam nut. You can just loosen that up. You tighten that guy in with a little, like a ball. It's a little bar with it's rounded at the end. And that's what this arm down here pivots off of. See, I just released it. It's starting to roll back now. Really, really simple brake setup. But this one needs a much bigger, much better brake system to stop that 18 horsepower engine. So, but anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna let this kid beat himself up on the yard for a little while longer. I'm gonna do some cleanup, get ready for the next one. Again, you guys, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Share it with your friends, leave a comment, tell me what you think. And I'll catch you guys later.